Kia ora, and how are you today? We have got such a brilliant episode for you today, haven't we, Brian?
It is, Liz, yes.
So we needed to say just two words. It is.
Just I was thinking, be more intellectual and just get it going and just think, yeah, look at me, how good I am at saying things. And it
just stick with it is. You're going to meet a friend of ours, a member of our private NZ Ahead community called Huma. I'm not actually going to say much more about what this episode is about because it's self-explanatory in the introduction that you're
just me then.
In the introduction you're about to listen to that we recorded for YouTube. And on the NZ Ahead podcast, we normally take those intros out and we leave them just for YouTube and then do you a little intro all for your
just for you
audio self, just for you. But this one, it's really good quality, isn't it, Brian? It's brilliant.
Is it?
You've worked hard on it.
Well, I did, but you were outside, so there is a bit of wind noise. So the quality depends what your class is quality. Do you mean content quality, or
obviously,
do you mean
yeah,
the sound quality?
No. I don't even think about the
view
sound.
outside is not the best.
Huma is a member of our private NZ Ahead community. If you would like to know more about that community and be on our podcast yourself with us, who are so professional, and we can interview you about how you made your journey to New Zealand, then you need to become part of our community, and you can find out more about that community by going to
www.nzahead.com/free. That's www.nzahead.com/free.
Take the free 5-day video guide, learn all about life in New Zealand, and on day 5, you will be given details of how to join our community. Okay, we're going to stop talking. We're going to sit back, listen to the fabulous intro that Brian spent so long doing the sound audio quality on.
At least 10 minutes.
And listen to the brilliant story from our friend and community member, Huma.
Got it.
You say you want to move to New Zealand, but how far would you be willing to go to come down under? Would you be willing, for example, to renounce your citizenship? Give up the passport of the country you were born? Back and talk about your parents. Are both your parents here?
Yeah, they're both here. They're just a little bit outside of Toronto.
How did they feel about you giving up your Pakistani citizenship?
Yeah, different reactions, I think.
In this week's episode, you're going to meet Huma. Huma has fought nail and tooth to get to New Zealand. She has given up a lot of things. She has had to prove lots of things.
You need to hang on.
I need to stop you. Hang on. My brain is just about to explode. You're telling me that this national security check, they want to know every single day since you were 14 years old? Every day?
Yes.
But eventually she has got to where she wants to be. This is the story of someone who is determined beyond a doubt that New Zealand is the place she wants to be. So sit back and enjoy this episode with Huma.
Got it.
Welcome to the NZ Ahead podcast. Everything you need to know about moving to and living in New Zealand.
There's a whole world here.
So nice to be with you again.
We call it Aotearoa around here, bro.
You'll be right.
We are your hosts, Liz and Brian.
Amazing New Zealand in the southern seas.
See, that's where I belong. That's home.
Huma, welcome to the podcast. I am so happy to have you here with me today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Your story is one that I've been waiting to hear. It's been a long, long journey that you've taken to get to New Zealand. You're not there yet, quite. You're almost there. But before we get to the end of this story, let's rewind and tell people who you are and a little bit about your family and yourself and how you came to have this dream of moving to New Zealand.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Huma. I'm from Toronto, Canada. I'm moving to Christchurch in the South Island with my husband, Jeff, and our dog, Dash. We're going because I'm a social worker. So it's on the green list. So we're going on a straight to residence visa. I mean, why New Zealand is kind of a long story, really. But back in 2022, we went to New Zealand for about 4 weeks. We were getting married there. And so we did like a 4-week honeymoon wedding vacation. And we started in the South Island and landed in Christchurch. And pretty much immediately from the moment we got to Christchurch, it just felt like home. And it was a really jarring feeling because, we'd never been there. We'd wanted to go for a long time, both of us, ever since we were kids. And of course, we were getting married there. And because of COVID, we'd actually been delayed 2.5 years. So we'd originally planned to go April of 2020 and then just kept getting pushed. And so there was a lot of anticipation behind the trip. So I kind of rationalized away the feeling by saying, I'm just excited to be here. This is me just being excited, and I'm overexcited. But I think the longer we were there, the more that feeling really settled until it became really clear that it was kind of something special, and it wasn't just excitement. And it was all the reasons, just everything that anyone ever says about why they want to move to New Zealand, the bird song, the nature, just the lifestyle that we think we could have. But I think at the end of the day, it was really just that like gut reaction to finally finding a place that I think just kind of met all the things that we were looking for without really maybe even knowing that we were looking for them. There's nothing wrong with Toronto. We love it, but I think it's just at this point in our lives, I think we need something different. So that kind of started us down this path of considering whether or not we could move to New Zealand. And then, I just kind of, found out that social workers were on the green list. So that opened up a pathway for us.
Fantastic. So you're from Toronto. What's your life like in Toronto? Just give me a picture of what your life is like.
It's pretty good. I mean, I have nothing to complain about. So, I have a great job. Jeff has a great job. We have all of our family and friends here. But the thing is, it's not the place that I chose. So my parents were immigrants, and they brought me to Canada when I was about 7 years old. And, they chose this place. This was where they came for all the opportunities. This was where they had family. So I grew up here, and then I built a life here because this is just where I was brought. But I think, probably when I was 18 or 19, I realized I could probably be happier somewhere else. Again, not because there's anything wrong with Toronto. It's just like the best way I can describe it is I think we just vibrate at different frequencies. So it's a big city. It's noisy. It's, there's a lot of traffic. There's just a lot of people. There's a lot going on. And I think for me, I need something that's a bit quieter, a bit slower. I need to be closer to nature. And again, all of those things are available here. It's not like I can't get that here, but it's just not the place that I feel like I'm thriving. So that's kind of why we're leaving. Again, nothing is wrong with it. We have a great life here. We're very comfortable. It's just we're looking for something different.
I love these stories because it's so different to when people say, I want to move because I hate this country and I can't stand this country and I want to leave. And I'm always so intrigued by people like yourself who are honest and say, actually, my life here is fine. It just doesn't feel right. And I also love what you said about how this is where your parents chose as well. I've got two questions for you. Whereabouts did your parents come from and how old are you?
Yeah. So my parents came from Pakistan, and they brought me here when I was 7. I'm 35 now. So that was 27 years ago. It was a while ago.
Yeah. So you've lived in Toronto. The thing is, when, like you say, I'm just trying to put my finger on to get the right words. It's because selfishly, I'm thinking about how we moved our kids to New Zealand. Will they in turn feel the same when they get to an age that says, well, my parents brought me here. This wasn't my choice. Is it something that was always there in you, from like the age of, I know you said when you were 18, 19, you started getting, was it always there, or was it only since you went with your husband to New Zealand that you suddenly thought, hang on a minute, I don't want to be in Toronto?
No, like I said, I realized that when I was about 18 or 19, and I didn't meet Jeff until I was about 22, 23. So I'd had that feeling quite a while before I met him. And it wasn't because I was unhappy here. It was just this realization, those like gut feelings that you have. And that was the same feeling we had in New Zealand, recognizing that maybe this was the place. It was kind of like the answer to this question that I'd had for so long of, if it's not here, then where? And I'd been to, out to Calgary and BC and we traveled around Switzerland for a while too. So, I'd been to incredibly beautiful places and I just didn't have the same feeling. So it was kind of a confirmation that yes, I might be happier somewhere else and maybe it's New Zealand and not these other places that I thought maybe it could be. Because the easiest thing would be to move somewhere else in Canada, of course, because it's the same country and it's a big country, but moving to Calgary would be much easier than moving to New Zealand. But even when the opportunities were present, it just never worked out and it never felt right. So yeah, it's kind of like the pieces fell into place, and maybe I'd kind of been looking for it all this time because I subconsciously knew I wanted it. And so I kind of acted on it. But yeah, I think, chicken and egg situation, right? Which is it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. I'm going to rewind back. I want to I want to talk to you about home and New Zealand and that feeling. I can talk all day about that feeling of energy and how you just know that something is right. But this has been a long journey for you. And I want to rewind back to when you first decided, you and Jeff said, right, this is it, we're going to go for it. Can you just walk us through the process? Because yours is a very different story. And we're going to find out why it's different now. But walk us through the process of what it was like when you first started applying for your New Zealand dream to become a reality.
Yeah. So, it took a while, right? We had this feeling. I kind of realized that maybe I could be happier there, but I don't think I was mentally in a space where I was ready to make the move. I think at that point we were kind of considering Calgary or BC because, again, that felt more doable for us. But I think slowly over time, like I said, as we traveled around to other places, we realized that nothing would feel the same. It would just kind of be, we're doing this because we're avoiding going to New Zealand because it's so far. So we started kind of thinking about it in 2023. So about a year after we went to New Zealand, I was considering doing a PhD in New Zealand because I was like, well, that's, 4 or 5 years. I can just do that. We can decide if we want to stay. And then I started realizing that I could just get a job in New Zealand. So that kind of changed the trajectory of how we approached it. And Jeff, initially, I think I kind of startled him with suggesting that we move. But the more he thought about it, the more he got on board. And I think he was actually more excited than I was about the move. So that really kind of started us down. How are we going to make this happen and where do we want to go? And because Christchurch was the place that we felt the most connected to when we went, even though we were there for 24 hours, that's kind of where we concentrated my job searching. And then it didn't take me long to get a job. I had a few different interests and I had a couple of interviews. The first one, they were really interested, but it was just the timing for us because I had a work contract here and I didn't want to leave before the time was up for that. They just couldn't wait for me to get down there. So they kind of said, in the future, if anything comes up, absolutely apply. But unfortunately, we can't make this work with your timing, which was fine. And then there was a hiring freeze. So all of the hiring kind of got put on hold for the health job. So that delayed us a bit longer, which I guess kind of helped me because it brought me closer to the date that I could move. And then so many people have said it, having connections in New Zealand is so key to getting anything. So luckily I'd made some connections with some people who worked in the Canterbury District Health Board in Christchurch. And so they had flagged a position for me in children's mental health. And they said, they're willing to wait. So if you want to apply, it would be a really good position to apply to. So I went ahead and did that and I got the offer. This offer was probably in August of 2024. And we were ready to apply for the visa. Everything was set. We knew that this was coming. So we'd gotten document ready. We were working with New Zealand Shores, so they'd helped us out. There was one hiccup, though, that we knew that we were going to come across. And that was a police check from Pakistan, which is where I was born.
You are here because you love New Zealand, just like me and Brian. And me and Brian made it our reality of moving over here. We arrived in New Zealand in 2009 with 2 small children, and I tell you what, hardly any information to our name. We came over here with no resources, no contacts, we knew nothing. One night while we were sitting around the fire when we got to New Zealand, we said, wouldn't it be great if we made something for other people in the same situation as us that gave them everything they needed to know about moving to New Zealand? And that's just what we did. We started a community of people, of like-minded adventurers from all over the world who are making their dream of moving to New Zealand a reality. This community is made up of 400 beautiful souls, each one bringing their own story, their own needs, their own information to our community. And I just love it. I tell you, it's just the best community in the whole wide world. If you would like to be part of that community or get to know more about it, then you can take our free 5-day video guide that we offer. This is a video guide that Brian and I created, showing you some aspect of life in New Zealand every single day. There is nothing like this on the internet. You won't find it anywhere else. It's brilliant and it's unique and it's free. So sign up to those 5-day video guides, and on day 5, I'll give you more information about how you can join our beautiful New Zealand community. Sign up now by going to www.nzahead.com/free. That's www.nzahead.com/free. Get to day 5, see all about our community, and I hope to see you on the other side. Okay, let's get back to the show.
A police check from Pakistan, which is where I was born. So for a residence visa, you have to have a police check from every country you're a citizen of. And for me, because I was born in Pakistan, I needed to provide a police check from Pakistan. But the issue was, since I left when I was 7, I didn't have any documentation that was valid. So anything I had was expired aside from my birth certificate. So that presented a challenge for me. I'd never been back, so I'd never had any reason to update the information. And I'm a Canadian citizen, so, I never really needed it. But now I was presented with, okay, well, I can't get this police check. I don't know how I'm going to get this visa without this police check. And talking to our immigration advisor, they just said, we can't guarantee that they're going to do this, but you can ask for a waiver for this police check requirement. And so that's what we did. I spent months trying to figure out if I could get this police check from Pakistan, but it just wasn't possible for me. There were things that I just couldn't provide them. They have Immigration New Zealand has a stipulation that if it's unduly difficult for you to get the police check, then they may provide a waiver for it. So that's kind of what we were hoping for. I wrote, like a 6-page letter saying all the reasons that I couldn't get this police check. We gave them a statutory declaration saying I wasn't a criminal before the age of 7. And I gave them my Canadian police check, which shows that, clearly I haven't done anything since I've been here. And then we waited. And we were kind of hopeful because I think on the surface, it seems pretty obvious. I mean, to me, at least, maybe I'm biased, but it seems pretty obvious to me that I was 7. The things Immigration New Zealand is looking for, or they say they're looking for in terms of, criminal behavior that would exclude you from a visa. There's no way I could have done any of those things when I was 7. And even if I did, I couldn't have come into Canada. So, I was kind of like, surely a human will see that. Surely a person will look at this application, see it for what it is, and grant us this waiver. But we found out that they had declined our application.
Ugh.
So, it took about 7 weeks of waiting. At this point, the employer's waiting in New Zealand. We're trying to plan a move. Since we have a dog, we had to make sure that everything was in order for him well in advance. So, we have all these things booked. We even had our flights booked. They were refundable, but we had them booked. Just hoping that, someone would see the situation for what it was. And, yes, they have to cross their T's and dot their I's. They have to do their job, and that's fine. But I don't think we were expecting it to be declined. So it was quite the shock.
Yeah.
And it came through like at Thanksgiving dinner for me. So it was 5 minutes before I sat down to Thanksgiving dinner with Jeff's family. Yeah. And I mean, it's my fault for checking my phone 5 minutes before dinner, but
it could have been such the other way. It could have been so good, but yeah.
I think that's why I was checking it, because I was like, it could have been good news, but
we can crack that champers open now.
It just wasn't. So I I didn't taste my dinner at all. I think I ate like
bet.
maybe half of it. And I didn't want to tell Jeff because I didn't want to ruin his dinner. So I just kind of like kept it to myself until after dinner. But yeah, so we were kind of reeling from what that all meant because, you know, we'd gotten this big long email from our immigration advisor giving us our options. It was really startling that that was kind of the situation that we were in. And, you know, again, like nothing on Immigration New Zealand, I recognize that they're doing their job. So, you know, they have things that they're looking for in our application. And you know, I guess this just didn't meet their requirements. But part of the issue with the decline was they had said, well, you can get the police check with a valid passport from Pakistan. But I told them on 3 different occasions, I didn't have this passport because I needed a piece of ID that I couldn't get, again, because there's certain situations and circumstances that prevent me from getting this ID. And without that ID, I can't get anything else. So a passport is out of the question. And I told them, like, I have a passport that was expired in 2001, but I can't use that. I've asked, I've checked, they won't use that. But then they said in the decline letter that you could use the passport. So that was really frustrating as well, because it made me question whether they really reviewed our application properly. So that presented a whole bunch of other issues.
I want to hold you right there. Just hold that thought for a minute. So there is so much to talk about here. So first of all, my mind is with it. So first of all, did you actually get to talk to a person in Immigration New Zealand, or was this all done via email?
Yeah, so it was all via email and all through our immigration advisor. So because we were using an immigration advisor, all the communication kind of went through her.
Yes.
So we would just get forwarded any of the responses, but I didn't speak to anybody like on the phone or anything like that.
Which would be even more frustration, because I know how good NZ Shores are at their job, but you just want to say, look, let me speak to them. Let me just handle this, you know, because it would be so you were 7 when you left. And like you say, you wouldn't have been able to get citizenship in Canada if you had been a criminal before the age of 7. Do you know what, Huma? I've never, in all our time that we've been doing this, and we've had this community for nearly 3 years, I've never heard of anyone's application be declined. I've heard of like, oh, well, you know, it's going to be put on hold. You just must have felt, because your job is waiting in New Zealand, you know, it's all set up. You've got your flights, everything ready to go. And to say you were declined because you couldn't get the police check because you didn't have a valid passport. So it's just, you must have just been feeling so. Before we move on, was there anything your parents could do? Wasn't there any, couldn't, oh, I can hear your dog barking. That's fine. That's fine. That's okay. He's just saying, no, she was really frustrated. Well, I mean, being that you were 7, I mean, my mind is like thinking, could you have gone to your parents, or would they not accept anything from family members or?
Yeah, so the immigration advisor had suggested getting like letters from our parents and stuff like that. But I think at the end of the day, like there was nothing that they could really say, right? Like it was all the same as I could say, is that I didn't commit any crimes as a child. And, you know, and the other piece of that too, I mean, this is neither here nor there. And at the time I sent my evidence, I didn't put this in my letter because, you know, I hadn't even thought about it. But most countries have an age of criminal responsibility. And what that means is if you commit a crime before that age, you're not going to have a criminal record, most likely, depending on the circumstance. But it's kind of assumed that at a certain point, your brain is not developed enough to understand the consequences of your actions. So, you know, I believe in Pakistan, it's 10 years old. So, you know, even if I did all this stuff and was able to get this police check, it wouldn't mean anything, because even if I had done something as a child, it wouldn't reflect. So it was just, the whole situation was really mind-boggling. And I think I could drive myself crazy trying to figure out what the thinking was of the person who was making these decisions. But at a certain point, I just had to like let it go for my own sanity, just to kind of say, like, this is it, like, this is what they've decided. And I have to find a way to, you know, get around this. I have to find a way to get to New Zealand in a way that makes sense. So yeah, it was really frustrating, but at the same time, it was kind of, you know, I didn't want it to prevent me from getting to New Zealand, to getting to our goal, because I knew it wasn't anything I did. You know, it's not like I am a criminal and they're preventing me from coming into the country because I'm the type of person they don't want there. It's just literally because I couldn't provide this piece of paper. So yeah, I just knew I had to find a way to deal with this and reapply it or figure something out so that we could make this work.
So 2 questions. What is your job that you've been offered in New Zealand? What exactly is your job?
So it's social worker, and I'm working for children and adolescent mental health.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for what you do in the world. Thank you. That's a great job to have. And it's kind of, when you were saying that, it's kind of ironic that they're not letting you in because you can't provide a police check for when you're under 7 and your job is to help children. It's like,
it's pretty funny. Even the manager for the position, he kind of made that joke too. He's like, I don't know. Like, maybe you could be. So
exactly. Yeah. So you're sitting there at Thanksgiving dinner and you've been told that your application has declined. What stopped you from just thinking, do you know what? Forget it. I'll go to Calgary. I'll go somewhere else. What stopped you from feeling like that?
Yeah, a couple things. First of all, I think if you ask anybody who like really knows me, they'll tell you I am very stubborn. So I think it just kind of like enraged me. It just felt so unjust. And I'm a social worker too. So injustice is kind of, you know, working around that is in my blood. So I think those things, I knew that I had to do something. Like I couldn't just sit by and let this be. So that was part of it. And the other part, again, was like, it wasn't me. It wasn't that they were declining me as a person. It was just a situation that like I couldn't meet this arbitrary requirement, really, when you look at it. And, you know, it just didn't make sense. So I knew I had to keep going. And then that feeling of home for Christchurch was so strong that I just couldn't imagine. And we'd spent 2 years, you know, imagining this life in New Zealand and what that would look like. And essentially kind of like, maybe not closing the door, but kind of like, you know, wrapping up our life here and telling people here that we were leaving, and even work, you know, the way we were approaching work. So I think it was just, I couldn't fathom an option that was not New Zealand. So I just knew I had to make it work. And I knew there were options, and I know we'll talk about them in a bit, but yeah, it was just, I had to make it work. I can't describe it any other way. I just knew I had to do it.
Sometimes words just are not enough, are they? You've just got to have that feeling. So what happened next? What did you do next?
Yeah, so basically on the drive home from Jeff's parents' house, I booked an appointment to renounce my citizenship for Pakistan. That was the only option left to me because, again, there was no way I could get the ID. And aside from that, there was not much else I could do. We had the option to appeal. That was one of the options presented to us by the immigration advisor, is that you can appeal this decision. And part of me felt like maybe we should, because again, it just seemed like they didn't review the application properly if they were citing information that I told them 3 separate times already. So there was a part of me that said, well, maybe something will come out of it. But really, when we looked at it, the most likely scenario was maybe they would accept that they missed some information, but then because I was still a citizen of Pakistan, that I would have to provide that police check in the end anyway. So we would go through this 6 to 8 month long process for an appeal. It would cost us $4,000 to $5,000. And at the end of it, we could still be in the same situation. And then we would have to reapply anyway. So then we'd be spending even more money and more time. So yeah, we felt like an appeal wasn't appropriate. We did file complaints to say, you know, we feel like this wasn't done properly. And the response we got from complaints was, sorry, you have a right to appeal. And if you don't use that right, there's nothing else we can do. So lesson learned, appeal if you can, because otherwise nothing's going to get done. But yeah, I booked the appointment to renounce my citizenship because I had never been there. I didn't plan on going there. You know, it's not going to change the fact that I'm born Pakistani and that, you know, that is where I was born. It's, you know, it has a special place in my heart. That's never going to change. but the citizenship wasn't something that I was making any use of anyway. So I went and renounced my citizenship. That took about 6 months. So we were still waiting.
Yes.
And in the meantime, there's not much we could do. So all I could do is let the employer know that this is the situation we were in. They have been fantastic, like beyond my expectation of any kind of kindness that anyone could ever give me for this type of situation. Because really, they've only met me virtually. They don't know what I'm really like when I work, but they have enough faith in me that they held the job for about a year.
Wow.
And, you know, they were so understanding of the situation that I was going through. They never made it seem like, you know, I was doing anything wrong or that I wasn't doing enough. They were just constantly supportive. We stayed in touch pretty much every month. I gave them an update of how things were going and how the renunciation was progressing. And again, because I didn't have any valid identification, things were taking longer because things had to be manually verified. So I had to like send them off to Pakistan, and, you know, people had to look at them and say like, yes, this is a valid document. So things like that. So it took a while. But yeah, I think it was maybe March that maybe April, that I finally got the certificate, the renunciation certificate in hand, and I couldn't apply for another visa until I had that in hand. So that was also part of the challenge. Even though I knew it was coming a month before I had it in hand, we couldn't apply for the visa because I needed the physical certificate. So yeah, we just had to wait for that. So at this point it is, 7-8 months maybe after the original application. So it's been a while.
It really has. It really has.
Yeah.
And frustrating as well, and emotional, hugely emotional.
Yes.
And I would just want to touch on the fact that you had to renounce your citizenship. But first of all, winding back, and please also, I just want to say this to people listening to the podcast and watching the podcast. This is not immigration advice. This is Huma's story. So we are not giving advice about what you should do and what you shouldn't do. This is just her story. But did Immigration New Zealand say to you, we can carry on with the original application? We'll just change a few things if you're no longer, if you're no longer Pakistani, or did they say you'll have to just do a completely new start all over again? What did they say?
Yeah, they didn't really say anything. It was just the understanding that if we wanted to do this, it would have to be a brand new application, because the circumstance has to be at the time you apply. So that was part of the issue, because we'd asked them in the previous one, like, what happens if I renounce my citizenship? And they'd said, well, because at the time you applied, you were a citizen, the rules apply, the requirements apply. So it wouldn't matter if you went and renounced your citizenship now. So it would have to be a new application. So yes, we had to pay for 2 separate straight to residence visa applications because we didn't get any money back. And the first one was before they raised the rates, and then the second one was after they raised the rates. So we were paying, I think it was $1,300 more for the second application than we paid for the first. And that was all on us because nothing was refunded. So yeah, that was not great.
So as well as frustration and emotion, now we've got financial, just throw that in there as well and give that a bit of a mix up as well.
That's right.
Yeah. You must really, really want to come to New Zealand is all I can say. You must really be feeling this feeling of being pulled to New Zealand. Can I just back and talk about your parents? Are both your parents here?
Yeah, they're both here. They both live, they're just a little bit outside of Toronto. So yeah, They're about an hour and a bit away from me. Yeah.
Okay. How did they feel about you giving up your Pakistani citizenship?
Yeah, different reactions, I think. My mom is usually a bit more like, okay, you do what you have to do. My dad definitely feels more attached to those types of things. So I knew he was not thrilled about it. But at the same time, he also knew that, I had to do what I had to do in order to make this dream happen. And they've been very supportive of this dream. I mean, they're immigrants. They moved. They left their family. They wanted a better life too. So as much as they don't want to see us go, I think they understand the reasons we're doing this. So yeah, it was, I think it was similar to how I felt. Like, I wish I didn't have to do this, but this is kind of the situation we're in. And again, like, I wasn't using my citizenship. I'd never been back. I didn't plan on going back. And even if I did, I'd still have to get a visa because, again, I didn't have any of the documentation I needed. So it was almost like I wasn't really a citizen anyway. But yeah, it does make it a bit more official, right, when you have the
yes
paper, so.
It does. And I just think you're incredibly brave and incredibly strong, because I think moving to New Zealand anyway and leaving your family and moving to the other side of the world is a very, very hard thing to do. But moving to New Zealand and then telling your mum and dad that not only that, but I'm going to give up my citizenship must have just been, and I'm so glad that they did take it well, but that can't have been easy. That really can't have been easy. Yeah.
I think it kind of feels like giving up a tie that, that you don't really want to give up. Like, they've held on to those and made sure that, we understand our culture. And so it does have like a bittersweet kind of feeling to it for sure.
But they want what's best for their girl, and they want to see you happy. So what happened next? What happened?
Yeah. So we, again, luckily the employer was on board. They said, yep, everything's good. We can wait till the end of June for you. So fantastic. You've got your renunciation certificate, go ahead and apply. Here's a new job offer letter. So again, we were document ready because we'd done it the first time. Only a few things needed updating, like our Canadian police checks and stuff, but we got the application in as quickly as we could. And we were assigned an immigration officer within a week, which was amazing. Things were progressing quickly. Everything was fantastic. We got a little bit of a request for information, and that was just to fill out this form. It's called Form 1209, I think. And this form is for a national security check. So this national security check, we got this form the first time around too. They asked us to fill it out. This form requires you to fill out what you've been up to pretty much every day of your life since high school.
Oh God.
And literally every day. Yeah, no big deal. So it's literally every day. I think Jeff had like a weekend in his that was kind of like unaccounted for because it was, like a weekend in between like two jobs, and we got response saying, what were you doing? You need to account for it.
Hang on. I need to stop you. Hang on. My brain is just about to explode. You're telling me that this national security check, they want to know every single day since you were 14 years old? Every day?
Yes. Every day.
And how do you do that? What do you say? Like, I went to the shops, I went to school, I came home?
It's just like ranges, right? So, you put the 4 years you were in school, that counts as something. So you don't have to put like, every like little detail of it. But the challenge is Jeff worked a lot of seasonal jobs for a while.
Yeah.
So, he'd be working for one employer over the summer, another employer over the winter. So his was just like, how do I do this without like it being 20 pages long of like, I worked for 3-4 years at like 3 different employers because it was just seasonal work. So yeah, it was things like that we had to put in. If you're unemployed, you have to put in like the period of time you were unemployed and what you were doing, how you supported yourself during that time, like that kind of stuff. So again, luckily we'd done that the first time around and not much had changed since this, we had to reapply and send it in. So we literally just had to like, make sure the dates were accurate still and sign it and send it off. So we did that. And then we waited a little while. I had a meeting with my employer saying, everything's good. We haven't heard anything else. Like, I think I'm ready. We've got our flights booked again. Like, we're good to come for the end of June. Everything's a go. And that was also because our immigration advisor had followed up with Immigration New Zealand, maybe 3-4 weeks, I think, after we'd submitted all of this documentation, and asked, hey, are you guys doing the national security check? And the response she got was, nope, hasn't been requested, which we were like, fantastic. That's great. That means we're not going to be delayed. So I went ahead and told the employer, yep, we're ready to come. And then the next day, I get an email from our immigration advisor saying she followed up again because we hadn't heard anything. And they said, no, actually, the national security check was requested. And it was requested 2 weeks before she was told it wasn't requested. So the previous person had just not given her the right information.
Right.
So Now we're looking at what this means. And for the national security check, there's not a lot of information out there. It's done by the New Zealand Security Intelligence Service, I believe. So it's sent out to a third party, and they have targets. So for a temporary visa, so, like an accredited employer work visa or something like that, the target is 90% within 2 weeks. At least that was the target, around the time that we were applying. And for a residence visa, which is what we were applying for, it's 90% within 6 months. So it could be 6 days, it could be 6 weeks, it could be 6 months, it could be longer. There's no guarantee. We don't know what they're really looking for because, again, it's through the security service. So, everything's kind of kept hush hush. And we're just kind of waiting. And Immigration New Zealand can't provide you any updates because they're not the ones doing it. So once they send it off, it's kind of out of their hands until they get it back. So yeah, we had no idea if we would even get the approval by the time I was supposed to start work.
So just to clarify, when you say 90% within 6 months, does that mean 90% of applicants, it's gone through within 6 months, 90%?
Yes.
What about the other 10?
Target.
What about the other 10%? Where's that? Just doesn't you? Oh, all right. Oh.
Yeah, you don't know. So from my understanding, and again, this is just my experience. I'm not, this is not advice. This is not like definitive anything. Just from my understanding, I think there was a time with a different type of visa that was opened up maybe back in 2021 or something, that these were taking really long. Like some people were waiting like over a year to get these done. And I think there were even stories in the news of like doctors waiting like, a year and a half, something like that, for these things to be done. But yeah, I think they're going much faster now, at least from our experience. But yeah, it's just not a lot of information. So it's really nerve-wracking because, you're trying to plan. And again, my employer's been waiting for so long that I'm like, any delay is pretty significant at this point.
Yeah.
So yeah, we just didn't know what would happen. We were just like, fingers crossed, I guess. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. So are you living in rented accommodation, or did you have a house? Are you with your parents?
No.
How does that work?
Yeah, so we rent, which is really nice. We've been here for a long time, so we just go month to month. So at least that wasn't an issue.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're on a monthly rolling lease, so you can just say, okay, right. Okay. So that's that. So I don't know why I asked you if you're staying with your parents. Why? Do you know why it is? It's because you look so flipping young. It's like, honestly, you look like you're in your 20s. And that's so ignore that question about living with your parents. But yeah, so at least that was okay. And the dog, because you've got to get him sorted, haven't you? And get him into, that must've been stressful. What did you do about that?
Yeah, that is the biggest stress, really, because if it was just Jeff and I, we could get up and leave in 2 weeks, no problem. But because we have him, we have to do all of the checks and the tests and everything. And we don't really have anyone who could do that for us. I know some people kind of get family members to do that for them, but unfortunately, none of our family members or friends can kind of take on that responsibility. So yeah, it's just up to us. So there was the question of whether I go first and then, Jeff takes care of all of that and then he joins. But yeah, it was just, we were just kind of going day by day just to see what could happen. Like the amount of paper I had of just like, if this date, then we can do it on here and I can leave here. And, like just the amount of dates that were floating around in my head was driving me a little bit bad. But yeah, we just took it day by day.
So many people in the community talk about that feeling of being in limbo, just that so unsettled. You don't even want to hang a picture on the wall because like, what's the point? Like, what's the point in buying stuff and putting it in the freezer? Because what's the point? We might not be here and we might be, and you can't make plans. You can't do anything. You can't settle. You're not there. You're not here. It's a real feeling of isn't it? So you must have just been feeling everything. And not only that, you seem to be coming up against brick walls at every 5 minutes. So what happened with where are we now? What's happened? Yeah.
So we learned that we had this national security check running, and I didn't know how long it would take because while all of my information on this form is Canadian, because, I've been here since I was 7, I didn't know if they were going to look into anything from Pakistan. Again, there's no information of what they're looking at. So I didn't know if that was going to happen and, what that would entail. And again, because I have so few information of me there because I was so little. I didn't know if that would take like a year. They told me for the police check, if there was any way I could even get the police check, it would take over a year. So I was like, well, I don't know how long this is going to take. Like, there's no information. So we were just kind of like, well, I guess we just wait and see. And if I lose this job offer, then, we go and try to get another one. Like, I don't know. So yeah, we just were waiting. I talked to the employer and I said, look, I'm willing to pay for an accredited employer work visa. If you are willing to sponsor it, that one should go through, much quicker and I will be there. I'll be there in August, no questions asked. Even if they do another national security check, their target is 2 weeks. So like I should be good. But I will, we'll apply for this visa. We will come down. I will start work. They can keep processing the residence visa in the background. Like I'm done waiting. So they were mulling that over because there's some work to do on the employer side for that. And I think like there's a lot of the job tokens I think they need. They have a lot of those for nurses, but not necessarily for social workers. So they would have to get one of those. And there's a whole process. And, it's a little bit of a investment for them to do that. So they were mulling over whether or not they were going to do that. And it took about 2 weeks. And they followed up with me and said, like, don't worry, we're still working on it. Like, we'll let you know soon. And then one night we were just sitting on the couch after dinner, watching Netflix or YouTube or something. And I checked my phone and I saw an email that said approved in principle. And yeah, I think I just gasped and Jeff was like, what? What is it? So yeah,
Get
that
the
was
turkey
a
out,
really
Jeff.
pleasant
Let's do it again.
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. Yeah. It was just a really pleasant surprise. I was not expecting our application to be approved so quickly. I mean, quickly, but so soon after this national security check, because I was like mentally prepared for this to go on for months. But yeah, luckily it went through. I guess they, Canada stepped up and sent them everything that they needed to know. And, it just, it was a huge relief. So yeah, we were set finally after 9 months, I think it took.
Yes.
The first one.
And do you know what? Yeah. When you say 9 months, it doesn't sound that long. And, if someone had said to you, all you've got to do is wait 9 months and then you'll have your New Zealand residency, and you think, okay, that's easy. Yeah. It wasn't that. It was everything that you had to go through to within that 9 months, wasn't it? Yeah. To get where you needed to be. Oh, you how did you celebrate? What did you do to celebrate?
Yeah, I think we immediately went out for a walk because we were just like, we need to move and get this like energy out. We called our family, let them know that we were all good to go. And I emailed everybody that I needed to do. So, I mean, it was more of a, okay, let's do all the things that we need to get done kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then, we've just been, like reveling in the fact that we finally get to do this and we finally get to go after all this time. And all this effort and stress and waiting and uncertainty is, it's paid off. So yeah, it feels pretty good.
So when do you arrive in New Zealand?
So we should be there August 5th, August 4th.
And we're filming this on July the 2nd. So you've got about a month to go and then you will be there. And you're going straight to Christchurch?
So we're doing things a little bit slower. We have like really long layovers. So we are actually spending a night in Auckland just to kind of, have a night where we can just decompress. And then we're flying down to Christchurch. So yeah. And then I start work a week later.
A week later, you're just not going to know yourself. It's just, and you said you were only in Christchurch for 24 hours.
Yeah.
Tell me, what was it about Christchurch that what was it? It was just try and explain what it was.
Yeah, I can't put my finger on it. It was just, quite honestly, it was one of those moments in my life, and I've had a few of them, where I just knew something in my gut, in my heart, no question. It was just so strong that it was undeniable. And I remember in Christchurch Airport, the baggage claim, above it, there's a picture of Mount Cook. And in little white letters, it says Christchurch. And I remember looking at that sign, and that's when I had that like overwhelming feeling of this feels like home. And to be honest, I've never felt that way about Toronto. I've never come back to Toronto or been in Toronto and be like, oh, I'm home. It's home because I've made it home, right? It's home because my family, my friends, my work, like everything I've built is here. That's why it's home. But I've never had that attachment to it as a place. So that kind of, again, we were there for 24 hours. It wasn't even the place we were most excited. We got married in Queenstown, so I thought that was going to be the place that I'd be most excited for. But yeah, it was really stark. And then we were driving around Christchurch, for the 24 hours that we were there. And it was just something about it. It was like it was a place I'd been before, but I'd never been there. And so there's this familiarity that, again, was really jarring of like, this just feels right in so many ways. So yeah, it's just, I can't put it into words, and it sounds a little silly when I like say it out loud, because it's just like, if you haven't experienced that, it's really hard to understand, because it's kind of like, are you sure? Like, and even my family has asked like, I don't know about that, but
it doesn't sound silly.
I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, it doesn't sound silly to me at all. It makes perfect sense. And I think you described it absolutely perfectly. It is. It's a pull to home, and that tug on you. And yeah, just beautiful words. Was there any time throughout all of this actually, before I ask you this question, and I don't know the answer to this, and I probably should, because this is our job and we help people move to New Zealand and all that. But does every country have to have this national security check? Wherever you come from in the world, does everyone have to have that?
Not from my understanding. I think if maybe there's any reason to look into it, if you provide like a police check and it has something maybe a little bit iffy. But my understanding, and again, this is only my understanding, this is not like the truth or, what it really is. I think it's done for people from certain countries, or people from certain countries are more likely to be put through a national security check. Because again, I don't have a criminal record. Jeff doesn't have a criminal record, and Jeff was born here. So, he was also required to go through this, I'm guessing because he's married to me. But yeah, I don't fully understand what the qualifiers of it are, but from what I've experienced and what I've seen, I think it is more likely if you're from certain countries. So Pakistan is one of those countries. So, I mean, make of that what you will.
Well, this is what I was just going to ask you was there any, because I know what I'd be thinking, was there any time going through this that you just took it personally and thought, hang on a minute, this is just because I'm from Pakistan and it's not fair? If you must
absolutely.
Yeah, you must have.
Yeah.
Been.
And I mean, my family moved to Canada in 1997, and, we didn't move to an area with a lot of people who were immigrants. So, I experienced my fair share of people judging and racism and all of that kind of stuff. So it's not anything that's new to me. But it's really startling when you experience it on a systemic level like that, because, this is kind of a blanket that's applied. It's not based on a history or a situation particularly. And again, I've grown up here. So, even if you were to look at it that way, it's kind of like I'm significantly more Canadian than I am Pakistani. Even, my accent, like the way I speak, the way I am, like it's very obvious that I'm a Canadian. But yeah, it was a really stark reminder that we have a long way to go,
And did it at any time make you think, well, sod off New Zealand. If that's what you're going to behave like, then I'm not coming to your country. Did it make you feel like that?
No, because I think I was able to separate the policies from the place. And again, I think that's a bit of my social work background coming through of like understanding how policies impact individuals, even though, maybe the consequence isn't really thought through. So I understood that this was just a policy and it doesn't reflect the people of New Zealand and what I experienced when I was there. And so, this was, again, just something that I had to work through in order to get to where I needed to be. And it wasn't fair. And, I didn't agree with it. And it put me in a disadvantaged position compared to, let's say, like if Jeff was applying on his own, he would not have had any of these issues. He would have probably gotten his approval within a week and, been on his merry way fly fishing in New Zealand. But, because he's married to me by proxy, he had to go through all of this stuff too. So yeah, it's, it's unfortunate. Like I said, it's not fair. It's unfortunate, but it is the way it is. And, maybe one day it will change, but I can only do what I can do within the system.
It's not fair. And I appreciate you telling your story here. And it highlights, I mean, I know this is the same with any sort of immigration high up, bureaucracy, is like you apply, they just see you as a number. You're just a number and some facts and where you were born. And it's not, it's so frustrating, because that's why I asked earlier on, did you actually speak to anyone? I mean, that's probably a really naive question, but it's, you just, I'm a person, talk to me. Don't just, like you say, just put this blanket over and go, oh yeah, everyone, this is how we're going to treat everyone because you're from this country. So I really, really admire and appreciate the fact that you've come and talked to us about this. And I admire your strength and your positivity and your open-mindedness to be like, oh, well, I can just see that it's not personal and it's this, because I don't think everyone would be like that. I don't think everyone would feel the same. It would have been quite easy to just go, like I say, oh, well, if you don't want me, then forget it. So I think you've got a real pull to New Zealand, and it shows in what the way that you've stayed so positive and determined. And I just really appreciate you for sharing that story.
Thank you. Well, thank you for letting me share it.
How are you and Jeff? Has Jeff been okay throughout all of this? Yeah,
he's amazing. He's so excited. He, like I said, he loves fly fishing. So I think that was kind of the thing that he was like, great, best fly fishing in the world. I'm down. I'm ready.
Yes,
so he's very excited, which is wonderful. And, we both talk about how we're strangely calm. We're not quite stressed. We're 4 weeks away from going, but we're both kind of, I mean, I'm sure the stress will hit, but we're both kind of like really calm, and, we know what we have to do and we're ready to do it. And I think because it's taken so long to get to this point, we're like emotionally so ready. We've been in New Zealand emotionally since we left. So I think we're just, we're excited. And, it's not like we're thinking that this is forever. At this point, it's, we're going to go and we're going to see what it's like. And if it lives up to everything that we think it can be for us, then great. And if it doesn't, then we have a home here too. So, it's, it was more of like we have to do this because we'll regret it if we don't.
Exactly.
But so we're both good.
I know this is putting you on the spot, but tell me what you expect from New Zealand. What are you, if someone said to you, what's your life like now? And let's zoom forward 5 years. What's your life like in New Zealand? Tell me what you're expecting it to be like.
Yeah. So, I mean, one thing is my commute to work currently is an hour and a half one way.
Oh,
so it takes me 3 hours a day to get to and from work. And I live in Toronto and I work in Toronto. And for anyone who knows, the geography of Toronto, yes, it's massive. But it's, it's traffic. It's a lot. And I only go on site a couple days a week, but even that is kind of eating away at my soul a little bit.
Yeah.
So talking to the employer in New Zealand, they were saying, I mean, they kind of, were shocked when I said that. And then they were like, oh, if you're like 20 minutes away from work, it's kind of like, couldn't you be a little closer? So I was like, that's what I need.
Yeah.
Like, I don't mind going on site every single day. It's just, how much of my time is that taking? So I guess for both Jeff and I, what we're looking at is having time back, which is really important to us. And for him too, I think his dream job is working for the Department of Conservation. So he's been like looking at the ranger jobs that have been posted, and so like just the idea of working out in nature with the wildlife and the incredible plants that are out in New Zealand, that's his dream. So I think we're just both excited to live in a way that's just more authentic to who we are, and being able to spend time outside of work doing the things that we want to be doing. Because the truth is, again, we have great jobs. I work with an incredible team. I'm very happy. But the truth is, after work, I'm drained. And it's not like a physical draining, even though it is a little bit, but we just don't want to go anywhere because the traffic in Toronto is a nightmare. So even if we wanted to leave after work to go anywhere, we'd probably be sitting in traffic until it's dark, even in the summer. So it really limits what we can do here outside of work and the life we build outside of work. So we find we just eat dinner, we watch a bit of Netflix, and then we're just on our computers watching more YouTube. So, it's just not the way I see myself living long term. So I'm hoping once we're in New Zealand, because it's just, we'll want to be outside, but it's just going to be hard to just kind of sit at home and just not do anything. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's just, I don't know if that kind of answers your question, but it's just more of a life outside of work that, we want.
Yes. And just living, like you say, just living for more authentically you, just doing what you want to do. And I can't imagine sitting in traffic for 3 hours a day. I cannot imagine that. So yeah. And I'm really excited. We'll do a follow-up call and find out where you are and what you're doing. And but before I let you go, and I'm really respectful of your time, I told you this would be an hour and I know I'm a little bit over, but before I let you go, is there anything that you would like to say to people who are in a similar position as you are, and coming in that position of moving over to New Zealand and having to go through that bureaucracy of, police checks and everything that you've been through? Is there anything that you'd like to say to someone that would help them?
Yeah, I think control what you can control is basically, what it comes down to. There's things that you just don't have any say over. And, maybe we were a bit naive going into it the first time thinking that, they would accept this situation for what it was and give us the waiver. And maybe if we had a different immigration officer, our situation would have been different. But I think it really is just, you're going to face challenges if your situation is a little bit outside of the nice little box that they have. And if you don't fit into that nice little box, perfectly, it's going to delay you. It's going to create some challenges. But, we were fortunate enough that we could do all the things that we needed to do. And I'm very aware of the privilege I have in that kind of situation, that not everyone can apply for a residence visa twice. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of effort, and it's a lot of money. So, I'm not ignorant to that either. So yeah, just do what you can. If it's a goal that you really want to work towards and you can put that time, effort, and money into it, you're the only person who knows if it's worth it. And if it's not worth it, then it is what it is.
Well, if anyone's an inspiration to keep going and follow your dream and make it happen, you certainly are. So thank you so much, Huma, for joining me today on the podcast, for sharing your story. And do you promise you'll come back on when you've been living in New Zealand, like a year or so? Just come back on and let me know. Yeah.
Would love to do that.
Okay. Give my love to Jeff and wait out this next month and you'll be in Christchurch.
That's right.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much
for joining me. Thank you, Huma. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast this week. We have loved having you here with us.
If you love this week's show, please share this with your friends. Send it to anybody you know that wants to think about moving to New Zealand, and get on over here yourself.
And tell them how brilliant it is as well. And also, if you haven't signed up for our free 5-day video guide showing you what life is really like in New Zealand, then go over to the website and sign up. You are missing out. This is brilliant. Go over to www.nzahead/free and we will send you 5 days worth of videos about what life is like in New Zealand. You are going to love it. So one more time, that website that you need to sign up for the free 5-day guide is www.nzahead/free. So we're going to see you next week. Until then, have a great week and we'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Say bye, girl. Bye.
Bye.